Welcome to the 2023-24 CSDE policies for Lost Links Online Test Administration. This presentation, which is a section of the ELAC training for the 2023-24 school year, covers the CSDE policies for the Lost Links Administration. All of the information in this presentation can also be found in this year's Lost Links Test Administration Manual. Let's start off with what's new for this iteration of the Lost Links. This year, DRC will create test sessions for all schools within each district based on the PSIS student files submitted in December 2023. DRC will create one test session per school and per grade. All students will be added to the corresponding test session with all 4 Lost Links domains already selected. So you may be asking, can districts edit any of the test session information? And the answer is yes. ELACs can modify test sessions created by DRC. Students who are loaded into PSIS after December 26, 2023, will have to be added to existing test sessions by ELACs. ELACs can add test sessions, but it's strongly recommended that ELACs use DRC-created test sessions to make sure that all students are assigned 4 domains for testing. Remember that students must have all 4 domains assigned in one test session, or they won't be able to receive an overall score and will not be eligible to exit EL/ML status. The DRC portion of this training, which will be posted to the Connecticut DRC Lost Links webpage, explains test sessions in detail. In Connecticut, students in grades kindergarten through 12 identified as English learners, multilingual learners, are expected to participate in the Lost Links testing during the testing window. And this year, the testing window is January 2nd, 2024 through March 1st, 2024. ELACs will need to work closely with district staff to identify students placed outside the district. These students are included in the student management system, and districts determine how these students will be tested. Testing ELs, MLs on the Lost Links is the responsibility of the reporting districts because they are ultimately held accountable for these students. Online testing with Form E is not allowed outside the state of Connecticut. Out-of-state students need to take the test on paper. The ELAC needs to order a paper copy for those students using the accommodated paper form available on the Connecticut DRC website. That should be ordered no later than February 2nd, 2024. DRC will ship the materials to the Connecticut district. Then the ELAC collaborates with the out-of-state contact to conduct a test administration within an appropriate window. Districts must return all completed paper tests to DRC for scoring by February 23, 2024. A list of students enrolled in APSEPs based on the October PSIS collection will be provided to ELACs by November 15, 2023. For planning and communication purposes, you should have access to this list. These students are included in the DRC student management system. I know data reporting isn't necessarily the most exciting topic, but it's important because ultimately this is the beginning of the process that ends with being able to provide you with your students' assessment information. From there, you can determine how to plan next steps and instruction and keep track of your students' growth. For many of you, PowerSchool is your district's data system. However, this is different from the state's student database, PSIS. You should not assume that just because something is in PowerSchool that it will be reported to the state. So please be sure to work with your district PSIS data manager to ensure the correct student information is being reported in the state system. In early November, the CSDE takes a snapshot of the October 1st PSIS collection and loads specific demographic information, such as EL/ML status, into the PSIS registration module. Unlike the collection module, registration is a live database that reflects what is true at that particular moment. Registration is the source of student information that is sent to all our assessment vendors, including DRC. We ask, please do not manually add students to DRC's portal. Once students are properly registered, they will be provided to DRC in a daily file. When you manually add students, it causes errors that may affect the reporting of that student's results. It's important to note that only students who are identified as ELML have their information sent to DRC to be rostered in the Insight system. In the same vein, only students identified as special education or 504 and PSIS will be eligible for accommodations on the lost links. So an obvious question is, what about those students who weren't an ELML in my district on October 1st, or who weren't even in my district on October 1st? That information needs to be added by your PSIS data manager to the registration module. We will begin sending DRC student information in early November. Once the assessment system window opens, CSDE exports student demographic information from PSIS to DRC daily, Monday through Friday. This daily export of information allows the CSDE to detect those students who were newly identified as ELML or who are new to your district and subsequently send their information to DRC. These are the important dates for this year's administration of the Lost Links. A list of students enrolled in APSEPS based on the PSIS collection will be provided to ELACs on November 15th, 2023 for planning and communication purposes. Insight will be open for ELACs beginning December 4th. At this point, ELACs can begin entering accommodations manually for each student who has an approved accommodation. We've provided detailed information on entering accommodations in the Accessibility Guidelines training video, which will be posted to the Connecticut DRC Lost Links webpage. It's imperative that students who are eligible for the alternate assessments have a completed Connecticut Alternate Assessment System eligibility form in their IEP within the CT-SEDS platform to ensure that they're rostered to the correct assessment, which would be the alternate assessment and not the lost links. If this is done beyond December 29th, then the student might be rostered incorrectly to the lost links. We really want to avoid incorrect and unnecessary testing. As a measure of safety for those students who are in grades kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 9th, 10th, and 12th, we ask that ELACs enter the student's information into the form entitled ELs MLs eligible for the alternate assessment. And please do that between November 15th and December 22nd. Those students will not be placed by DRC into a test session. There's also a small group of students who may not be able to access a specific tested domain on the lost links due to a disability. For example, some English learners, multilingual learners, may also have a primary disability category of deaf or hard of hearing and are unable to access the listening subtest of the lost links due to this disability. Similarly, some ELs, MLs with an IEP or 504 plan may be nonverbal, and due to their disability, even when provided assistive technology or augmentative and alternative communication supports, may not be able to participate in the speaking subtest. To communicate to the CSDE about these students, the ELAC will submit the student-specific information using the domain exemption form between November 15th and December 22nd. Accommodated paper forms must be received in time to test the students and return materials, which is February 23rd. That is before the end of the window to allow for time to process the paper forms and score them. Everything we cover in this training can be found on the Connecticut DRC Lost Links website. Bookmark this website. It's specific to Connecticut and contains valuable information for all ELACs and technology contacts regarding reference materials, training videos, and communication reminders. Each student participating in the Lost Links must meet each of the following components of the eligibility criteria for each applicable subtest of the loss links to be eligible to receive accommodations. The student must be identified as an ELML in PSIS, and the student must be identified as a student with disabilities with an implemented IEP or Section 504 plan. And the need for any accommodation must be documented in the IEP or Section 504 plan and used regularly for instruction and assessment. And the student requires one or more of the allowable accommodations described in the Loss Links Test Administration Manual in Appendix C. Work with your district special education staff to ensure accurate CT-SEDS information is represented for your ELML students with disabilities. I'm going to present some information about student movement within and between districts. We all know that students will move between schools in the same district during the testing window. As soon as the student is registered in PSIS in the same district but in a new school, then the student is rostered in that new school and the DRC Insight portal. The student's new information should be available in the Insight portal within 48 hours of the update in PSIS. The ELAC should check the student's profile in the DRC Insight portal and look for any existing tickets assigned to that student. They should also review the student's test taking status. If the student started taking one subtest, the student must finish testing with the same test ticket and all remaining subtests in the test session created at the previous school. The test ticket should securely be moved from one school to the other so that the student can resume testing using that original test ticket. If this does not occur, the student will not receive an overall score and will not be eligible to exit ELML status. It should be known that test results for the student will remain at the previous school where the test session and the test ticket were created in the DRC portal. However, their final results will follow the student in the EdSite portal. If the student hasn't started any testing, they can be placed in a new test session at the new school and begin testing. In this situation, test results for the student would be reported to the new school where the test session and test ticket were created in the DRC Insight portal. When a student is registered in PSIS in a new district and subsequently in a new school, the student is registered in the new district and school in the DRC portal. If a site has a new student from a different district, we ask that you first contact the ELAC from the original district to see if the student has started testing and which subtests are taken. You can go to EdSite to view the ELAC contact information. If testing is started, the same ticket must be securely sent, and again, the student must finish testing with that original test ticket in the same test session. If this does not occur, the student will not receive an overall score, and the student will not be able to exit ELML status. The ELAC at the new district will not be able to view the test session from the previous district. Test results for the student will remain in the previous district where the test session and test ticket were created in the DRC Insight portal. However, all test results for the student follow the student in EdSite. If the student has not started any testing, the student can be placed in a new test session at the new district and school and begin testing. Test security is essential to ensuring the integrity of the test and the accuracy of test results, and ultimately the success of the testing program. A secure test environment requires that ELACs and proctors protect test materials from being reviewed by teachers or students. Items or other secure test materials should never be shared before or after testing, nor should items be discussed. The loss link should only be administered through the password-protected testing environment of the DRC test delivery system unless directed otherwise by the CSDE. During testing, proctors should ensure that students do not have access to resources related to the content being tested. and we cannot stress enough that all phones and smartwatches, including earbuds, be removed during testing. Lastly, the proctor should promote a quiet test-taking environment, void of talking or other distracting, and actively proctor at the sessions. Test security and suggestions on how to prepare your testing environment are addressed at length in the Lost Links Test Administration Manual posted to the Connecticut DRC Lost Links website. Each session has its own directions, and proctors must administer all test items according to instructions provided in the online environment. Modifications or changes are not permitted and are considered inappropriate test practices and therefore a test irregularity. If any inappropriate test practices occur, they must be reported immediately, so there's time to fairly address the situation. This includes the use of electronic devices and the sharing or mishandling of test materials. If a test proctor demonstrates inappropriate proctoring, such as providing or modifying student answers or using secure test materials inappropriately, the ELAC should contact the Student Assessment Office immediately. We can be reached by phone or email. And we do recognize that errors occur during testing, which is why we have the appeals process. All appeals should be entered on the Lost Links appeals form hyperlinked above and available in the Connecticut DRC Lost Links website. The ELAC should be the only one to enter the appeal in the form. And we say that to avoid confusion. And we also ask that you please stop testing the student in all domains until the appeal is approved. We work diligently on the appeals and we will respond as quickly as possible. Some appeals are solved simply by unlocking the test. The ELAC can simply submit an appeal for the unlock, which allows the student to re-enter the same test where they left off. Other appeals are more complex and are usually done due to an administration error. These might require us to regenerate or clear the test, allowing the student to begin anew at item number 1. Because students are directly impacted by these types of errors, the CSTE does require documentation from the ELAC. And when you send us that information, please refrain from emailing students' names. We ask that you use the SACID in all communications unless they're faxed. The appeals process is detailed in Appendix B of the 2023 Lost Links Test Administration Manual. And please don't hesitate to contact the CSTE for guidance on potential test irregularities or next steps. It's recommended that all ELACs register for the Student Assessment News. We expect ELACs to share the communications from the CSTE and DRC with staff, including the district administrator for testing and the special education director. Remember that as the ELAC, you are our point of contact in the district. Should you miss a communication, we post all important information on the Connecticut DRC Lost Links website, the CSTE assessment web pages, and the updated Connecticut portal. And please let your IT staff know that the DRC email address at datarecognitioncorps.com should be on the allow list, so important notices aren't missed or blocked or quarantined or even sent to the spam folder. We've provided a number of resources, all of which are hyperlinked here and available on the Connecticut DRC Lost Links webpage. DRC can be contacted using the Lost Links Help Desk phone number or email address on this screen. And here is the contact information for our team at the Connecticut State Department of Education. We are always available to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.